The series begins with a mysterious warrior battling blacksmiths for the Dragon Cleaver, which is believed to enable whoever wields it to rule the martial world. While they were busy fighting, a man was secretly observing them. It turns out that the man is one of the 7 warriors from the Wudong sect, whose students are known to be kind and always uphold justice. It was known that the Wudong warriors were extremely skilled at fighting, and the man who was secretly observing the fight was called Third Wudong. Seeing the men fighting in front of him, he didn't know why. Nevertheless, he decided to help one of them, who was beaten by the mysterious Swordsman. The situation was even more complicated because it turned out that the Swordsman was not the only one who was after the Dragon Saber. There is also a sect called Sea Sand who wants it, and now they show up to take it from the blacksmith. Fortunately, Third Wudong reacted quickly to save the blacksmith by kicking tiles at the Sand Sea sect members, defeating them easily. With the enemies defeated, Third Wudong takes the blacksmith to a safe place, though the blacksmith suspects he is after the Dragon Saber. Soon after, Third Wudong explained that he only wanted to help the blacksmith and was not interested in the Dragon Saber. After saying all that, he leaves the blacksmith, who he judged to be very obsessed with the Dragon Saber. But just as Third Wudong had walked a few steps, the Sand Sea sect members again came charging for the Dragon Saber, forcing him to hide. Unfortunately, the Sand Sea sect members' attacks hit the blacksmith and knocked the Dragon Saber out of his hand. Suddenly, the weapon flew far back and almost hit Third Wudong, hiding behind the boards. Then, the Dragon Saber landed in a hidden part of the building, so the Sand Sea sect members couldn't see it when they entered it. Even though he didn't have the strength to fight, the blacksmith refused to give the Dragon Saber to the Sand Sea sect leader. Even when they threatened to kill him, the blacksmith still refused to reveal where the weapon was. He insisted that the Dragon Saber was his, and they had no right to take it from him. It turned out that a Dragon Saber is indeed a powerful object. Everyone tried to take the weapon, and one of the groups is the Heavenly Eagle sect. In the blink of an eye, all the members of the Sand Sea sect were killed by the newcomers, leaving only the leader of the Sand Sea. As if he realized his life was in danger, he lied by telling the Heavenly Eagle sect leader that the Dragon Saber had been taken away by someone from the Wudong sect. And thus, after killing the Sand Sea sect leader, the Heavenly Eagle leader ordered all his men to search for the thief. Knowing the attackers had left, Third Wudong came out of his hiding place. But to his horror, he saw corpses lying in front of him, and all the deaths happened because they fought over a weapon. Now Third Wudong was starting to think the Dragon Saber only brought disaster. He decided to take it back to his sect, where he could hide it so it wouldn't bring disaster. But on the way home, the small boat that Third Wudong was on was attacked by a large ship, forcing him to abandon the boat and jump onto the ships of the assailants. Apparently, the big ship was boarded by the Heavenly Eagle sect members who still haven't given up looking for it. Then, the fight is unavoidable. So, Third Wudong must fight the sect leader if he wants to escape the chase. It turned out that Third Wudong could easily corner the Heavenly Eagle sect leader. He could even beat them if one of them didn't use the cunning method by ordering his men to shoot poison needles. Unfortunately, the needles hit Third Wudong's nape, causing him to faint instantly. After obtaining the Dragon Cleaver, the Heavenly Eagle sect members sent Third Wudong back to his sect using a courier service. They even paid the couriers a lot of gold, much more than the proper rate. And interestingly, a woman from the Heavenly Eagle sect threatened that she would kill the couriers if they failed to protect Third Wudong during their journey. And so, the couriers started their journey with Third Wudong. They kept moving day and night, almost non-stop, until they had unknowingly arrived at the foot of the mountain where the Wudong sect was located. A few moments later, their journey was stopped because they were intercepted by several warriors, one of whom claimed to be one of the 7 Wudong warriors. In other words, that man claimed that he was Third Wudong's sect brother. The man then asked the couriers to hand over Third Wudong to him, promising the couriers that he would complete their task by taking his brother home. Despite his suspicions, the leader of the couriers complied with his request. He handed Third Wudong over to the man and let them go. Unfortunately, that was a wrong move because it turned out that the man was not a Wudong warrior. Instead, he is the warrior who fought the blacksmiths at the story's beginning. And now that the man realized that Third Wudong was helpless, he immediately asked Third Wudong where the Dragon Saber was. To get the answer faster, he even broke all of Third Wudong's bones and joints. Not far away, one of the original Wudong warriors, 5th Wudong, ran into the couriers while he was out on patrol. Shortly after, the leader courier greeted him and told him they had just handed Third Wudong to his brother. Hearing that, 5th Wudong immediately felt suspicious. He had just come down from the mountain and met no one on the trail. If what the couriers said were true, he thought, he should have passed the caravan heading up the mountain. Feeling that something was wrong, 5th Wudong rushed to look for his older brother, who he finally found lying on the ground in a pitiful condition. Shortly after, he brought his brother back home without wasting time, and when he got there, he asked their leader to save Third Wudong. The master, who was also the sect leader, had indeed managed to extract the poison from Third Wudong and heal him. Sadly, he still couldn't make Third Wudong recover instantly. According to him, Third Wudong would be paralyzed in the next few years before he could learn to move again. The news made 5th Wudong furious. He met the leader of the couriers again and then beat him up. He didn't care that the courier leader came to check on Third Wudong's condition. It seemed to him that the leader of the couriers was incompetent in carrying out his duties. Soon after, Fifth Wudong's punches caused the courier's leader to accidentally drop the gold he had in his pouch. Furious, he picked up the gold and checked it. It turned out that the gold contained a sign of a steel finger technique, an ability that was possessed by Shaolin officials. Because of that, Fifth Wudong and his leader assumed that the Shaolin sect had injured Third Wudong. With that, the leader ordered First Wudong, who was his most senior student, to come to the Shaolin sect to investigate. Meanwhile, Fifth Wudong is ordered to investigate the courier's headquarters, especially after he knows that the couriers received an order to deliver Third Wudong from someone surnamed Yin. He hopes to find clues about the perpetrators who attacked his brother there. But to his surprise, when Fifth Wudong arrived at the headquarters, he found that everyone there had died. Soon after, the leader of the couriers accuses Fifth Wudong of being the killer, thinking he still has a grudge against him for failing to protect Third Wudong. And because of that grudge, Fifth Wudong killed the courier's colleagues and family. At least, that's what the courier thought. All these accusations were heard by people from the Shaolin sect, who happened to be near the crime scene. Thinking that Fifth Wudong was indeed a murderer, they immediately attacked him and even attempted to kill him in revenge. Here, Fifth Wudong didn't fight back at all. He only avoided the attacks from the Shaolin sect members while explaining that this was all just a misunderstanding, but they would not listen to him. Suddenly, Fifth Wudong's attention was distracted by a person dressed in white, who unexpectedly helped him by throwing stones at some of the Shaolin sect members' eyes, leaving them injured. Ignoring the Shaolin sect members, Fifth Wudong tried to chase the mysterious figure, but he lost that person when he arrived at a port. Instead, he found a woman on a boat, and the woman introduced herself as Yin Shushu. After introducing themselves to each other, Yin Shushu explained to Fifth Wudong that she had secretly followed the person who tricked the couriers and kidnapped Third Wudong. At one point, she even attempted to save Third Wudong by challenging the kidnappers to a fight. Unfortunately, her ability is still inferior to her opponent, who managed to shoot several poisons at her. Because of that, her rescue mission failed, and she had to escape after losing the duel. Besides that, Yin Shushu explained that she was the one who killed the couriers because she judged that they had failed to fulfill their responsibility of guarding Third Wudong. Hearing those stories was enough to make Fifth Wudong believe that she was not his enemy. Then Fifth Wudong thought she had tried to save his brother, and it was now his turn to save her. Afterward, he gave her an antidote, hoping it could cure the poison in her body. Turned out that the antidote worked. The next day, Yin Shushu, who turned out to be the daughter of the Heavenly Eagle sect, was able to lead the celebration after getting the dragon saber. In fact, the one who injured Third Wudong and snatched the dragon saber from him was Yin Shushu's brother. Meanwhile, Fifth Wudong, who was still continuing his investigation, saw Yin Shushu playing the dragon saber in the middle of the event. He realized he should investigate her and her family to find out what had happened to his brother. But before he could do so, a great warrior named Golden Lion appeared to interrupt him. And like everyone else, Golden Lion was aiming for the dragon saber. Seeing that someone had managed to snatch the dragon saber, Yin Shushu tried to fight him to get it back. But she is no match for Golden Lion, who can beat her easily. He even challenged everyone there to fight against him. He was confident that he could kill them all, and if he did, no one would ever know that now he was the one keeping the dragon saber. Soon after, Fifth Wudong accepted the challenge, but at the same time, he realized that Golden Lion's power was not to be underestimated. So instead of fighting with weapons, he challenged Golden Lion to pit their calligraphy skills. If he won, Golden Lion would have to spare everyone's lives and hand over the dragon saber. By combining his martial arts skills with his literary abilities, Fifth Wudong created enchanting calligraphy that even Golden Lions recognized his superiority. But, of course, that didn't make him willing to give up the dragon saber. So Golden Lions punched Fifth Wudong and Yin Shushu, immobilizing them before letting out a loud roar that drove everyone on set crazy. Hence, no one would know that Golden Lions had a dragon saber now. Everyone except for Fifth Wudong and Yin Shushu, unaffected by the roars, had been punched. Golden Lion then decided to kidnap them both by taking them on a ship he directed to a deserted island. There, he plans to meditate to discover the secret to the power of the dragon saber. And during that time, Fifth Wudong and Yin Shushu had to accompany him. While sailing to the isolated island, Golden Lion told Fifth Wudong and Yin Shushu that he wanted the dragon saber because he wanted revenge. More precisely, he wanted to kill those who had killed his family. But whatever reasons Golden Lions had, Fifth Wudong was unwilling to comply. So one night, Fifth Wudong told Yin Shushu that he would find a plan for them to escape. Unfortunately, their conversation was overheard by Golden Lion, who was pretending to be asleep. Furious at Fifth Wudong's betrayal, Golden Lion attacked him mercilessly even though he had spared his life. Then Fifth Wudong tried to fight back, but there wasn't much he could do to face the powerful Golden Lion. In a few moves, Golden Lion managed to corner him. Realizing that Fifth Wudong would lose if the fight continued, Yin Shushu quickly interrupted them. She swore to Golden Lion to accompany him on the island. Hearing that, he stops beating Fifth Wudong. But just as they made a truce, a sudden storm came rushing over and tossed the ship. Unexpectedly, the storm made Golden Lion think of his dead family. He became so angry that his sanity disappeared. He no longer remembered the people around him and started swinging his weapon as if he were fighting his family's killers. His strange behavior continued until the next day when the storm had cleared. He even attacked Yin Shushu, thinking she was his wife's killer. Seeing that Golden Lion was about to kill Yin Shushu, Fifth Wudong quickly threw down his weapon and challenged him to another duel. But then again, Golden Lion could defeat him easily. The critical situation forced Yin Shushu to take out her secret weapons, then throw them right into Golden Lion's eyes, blinding him. Unfortunately, her attacks only made him even more vicious. As if in a trance, he destroys the ship with one strike, causing it to sink into the ocean. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the Ame sect leader and her students seem to be attacking an entertainment venue to save her students. So in the old times, many martial sects spread across central mainland China, and the most influential and dominating among them are the 5 greatest sects. The first is Ming, the strongest sect, but considered cruel. Then there are Shaolin and Wudong, 2 sects well known for their integrity. Fourth, the Ame sect, in which all members, from students to leaders, are women. And last but not least is the Heavenly Eagle, a part of the Ming sect. And now, the Ame sect attacked the Heavenly Eagle people because someone from their sect had kidnapped a student from the Ame sect. The kidnapper was Eagle Prince, the one who finally revealed himself after hearing the commotion. Soon after, Eagle Prince and the Ame sect leader fought several moves, but she could defeat him easily. And while they were fighting, the Ame sect leader ordered her students to release their kidnapped seniors. A while later, White Eagle, the father of Eagle Prince and Yin Shushu, heard about the Ame sect's attack on his son. Enraged, he went to the scene of the incident, where he challenged the leader of the Ame sect to a fight. And thus, the 2 sect leaders dueled fiercely. White Eagle himself is the leader of the Heavenly Eagle sect. Along with Golden Lion, he was one of the former 4 pillars of protection that the Ming sect used to have. So it's not strange if he is very strong and able to match the strength of the Ame sect leader. Ultimately, they had to end the fight without having a winner. Shortly after, the Ame sect leader and her students left the location, while White Eagle scolded his son for humiliating himself by kidnapping women from other sects. Upon arriving at their headquarters, the Ame sect leader, who was actually ill, appointed her student to replace her as leader one day. She believed that her student, Xiaofu, possessed the most superior abilities among others and was worthy of being an example for other students. But on the contrary, Xiaofu herself is not sure she is the right person to replace her leader's position, considering that she feels her abilities are still far below her leader's. At the same time, Fifth Wudong and Yin Shushu were trapped at sea after their ship was wrecked. Luckily, they found chunks of ice which they used as rafts. And after some time, they finally found a small uninhabited island that they could live on for a while. After spending a lot of time together, Fifth Wudong and Yin Shushu realized they had fallen in love. So, regardless of their situation, they confessed their feelings to each other. Even so, Fifth Wudong realized that it would be difficult for them to be together forever. If they managed to return home, each leader would oppose their relationship. Because, after all, their sects had conflicting principles. The Wudong was a bright sect, while the Heavenly Eagle had the foundations of a contrary sect. However, because they had already fallen in love, Fifth Wudong and Yin Shushu decided there was no need to return home. That way, they will still be able to be together without having to fear that their relationship will be opposed. And so they made a marriage vow which, although very simple, was sacred to them. But still, their marriage would end quickly if they couldn't survive. For that reason, they would explore the island, hoping to find useful things that would help them lead a long life there, especially since the land there was always covered in snow despite the presence of volcanoes. And it was because of that Fifth Wudong came up with the idea to name the island Fire Ice Island. After walking for a while, Fifth Wudong and Yin Shushu found a comfortable cave to live in, at least compared to the outside. Without thinking long, they chose the cave as their new home. Gradually, they got used to living life on the isolated island. One day, when Fifth Wudong and Yin Shushu were fishing for food, they found Golden Lion walking toward them. It turned out that he had survived the shipwreck incident, although his condition wasn't good. He even fainted as soon as they saw him. Worried, they took him to their cave, where they treated him. After he woke up, Golden Lion again swung its weapon at them, telling Fifth Wudong and Yin Shushu to apologize for blinding him. Then Yin Shushu explained that she had to stab him in the eye to stop his rampage. Luckily, he could understand her reason. After all, Golden Lion was finally able to seclude himself and learn the secrets of the dragon Saber without anyone interrupting, even though the consequence would be that he would not be able to see forever. Several months passed since then, and their life on the island continued peacefully. In fact, when Fifth Wudong and Yin Shushu were hunting for food, she told her husband that she was pregnant. However, she was worried that if they continued living together with Golden Lion, it would sooner or later harm their child. She was afraid Golden Lion would again lose his mind and attack them at any moment. Then Fifth Wudong reassured his wife, saying she didn't need to worry about Golden Lion. He promised to try his hardest to protect her and their child, so Golden Lion would not harm them even if he did change one day. When her pregnancy was 9 months, Yin Shushu was ready to give birth to her child anytime. But that moment actually came when a thunderstorm hit. Of course, Golden Lion went berserk again as soon as he saw the thunderbolts appear in the sky. He looked up at the sky as he cursed, and one of the curses that came out of his mouth was aimed at Cheng Kun, who was none other than his leader and the person who had killed his family. Cheng Kun had the nickname of the Lightning Hand, which was why Golden Lion always lost control whenever a thunderstorm appeared. Still consumed by anger, Golden Lion entered the cave and attacked Fifth Wudong, who kept trying to calm him down. Failing to persuade him, Fifth Wudong endured his attacks, but his efforts were again in vain. After all this time, his ability is still far behind that of Golden Lion. Fortunately, before Golden Lion killed Fifth Wudong, Yin Shushu gave birth to her child, and as soon as he heard a baby crying, Golden Lion's anger immediately subsided. He even showed concern for the baby and asked about the gender. His concern was enough to touch Yin Shushu's heart, who asked Golden Lion to be willing to become the adoptive father of her son. In that way, she hoped his grudge would slowly go. She hopes he will no longer be lonely if he has adopted children, and he will forget his dark past. Not only that, Fifth Wudong even asked Golden Lion to come up with a name for the newborn. Hearing that, Golden Lion accepted the request happily, so he named the baby Zhang Wuji, a combination of Fifth Wudong's first name and Golden Lion's deceased child's last name. Meanwhile, at the Heavenly Eagle headquarters, they have a guest who emits extraordinary energy, far greater than most people. That guest was Yang Xiao, the left envoy or the number 2 person in the Ming sect. His strength is indeed formidable, but because of that, he becomes arrogant. Therefore, people and even those from the Ming sect disliked him. His arrogance was also seen when he visited the Heavenly Eagle headquarters. Yang Xiao destroys the headquarters front door before confronting the sect leader, White Eagle. Indeed, his arrival this time was due to White Eagle's decision to secede from the Ming sect and form its own sect. He said what White Eagle did violate the Ming sect's rules, and now Yang Xiao had come to warn him. It turned out that Yang Xiao had a higher rank than White Eagle in the Ming sect organization. The most powerful person in the sect is the leader, who recently mysteriously disappeared and is presumed dead. The leader has 2 direct subordinates, the left envoy, Yang Xiao, and the right envoy. Then below them are the 4 Ming pillars, of which 2 are White Eagle and Golden Lion. So in terms of rank, Yang Xiao had the right to criticize White Eagle for breaking the sect's rules. But, of course, White Eagle didn't want to listen to Yang Xiao. Moreover, Yang Xiao was being so impolite in front of him. Without thinking much, he began to attack Yang Xiao, not remembering that he had not fully recovered after his fight with the Ame sect leader. His condition clearly made him unable to fight optimally. So, in the end, he lost to Yang Xiao. Yang Xiao, however, decided not to continue with the fight. He left the headquarters after warning White Eagle to disband his newly formed sect. If White Eagle obeyed, he could return to the Ming sect again. After leaving White Eagle headquarters, Yang Xiao went to the Ame sect headquarters to settle the matters with the Ame leader, who held him responsible for the death of her sect's elder sister. Thus, Yang Xiao tried to explain that he was not her elder sister's killer, but the Ame leader refused to accept his explanation. She was already consumed by revenge, and that anger made her attack Yang Xiao. However, he put up no serious resistance. He only dodged her attacks before finally leaving with Xiaofu as a prisoner. Yang Xiao then took Xiaofu to where he left a little girl with her. He asked Xiaofu to take care of the little girl for the next month. After that, he would release her. Unfortunately, she had no other choice in this situation, and so she accepted his request, hoping he would fulfill his promise. Day after day passed, and her relationship with Yang Xiao improved when Xiaofu took care of the little girl. During that period, she frequently conversed with him, and from these conversations, she realized that the Ming sect was not as bad as her leader and people had made it out to be. In fact, the Ming sect is not completely filled with evil people. One day, Yang Xiao gets injured after eating a meal poisoned by a group of rebels from the Ming sect, causing Xiaofu to have to take care of him. And it was during the treatment that she had the opportunity to ask him about the things that had made her curious. Why did her leader have such a grudge against him that she wanted to kill him? Yang Xiao finally told Xiaofu the reason for that. So in the past, her leader's foster sister had always challenged Yang Xiao to fight, and he had always been able to beat her in every fight. Even after practicing for 10 years, Yang Xiao still emerged victorious. That loss might have finally frustrated her leader's foster sister, so she chose to kill herself after their last fight. But unfortunately, her adoptive sister, who is also Xiaofu's leader, mistakes Yang Xiao for her killer. Since then, the Ame sect leader has become vengeful towards Yang Xiao and always thinks of ways to kill him. Moreover, she suspected Yang Xiao had stolen the celestial sword, previously owned by her dead adoptive sister. Hearing that story, Xiaofu asked Yang Xiao to return the celestial sword to her leader, but once again, he denied that he had stolen the sword. He said that's just her leader's suspicions. Yang Xiao said that he had no interest in possessing the celestial sword. However, he knew who the person who had stolen it was. After Yang Xiao recovered, Xiaofu revealed her intention to return to the Ame sect. But Yang Xiao had decided to break his promise. He couldn't let her go from beside him because he already loved her. And so he asked Xiaofu to come with him to his place, where they could get married later. Yang Xiao tried to convince Xiaofu that it was the best choice for her because if she returned to her sect unharmed, her leader would suspect that Xiaofu had betrayed the sect. Unfortunately, Xiaofu rejects Yang Xiao's love, arguing that she is already affianced with 6th Wudong. After all, the Ame sect leader would refuse to give her blessing if they married, and she didn't want to disappoint her leader. The next morning before they parted ways, Yang Xiao gave Xiaofu a Ming sect ID, saying he would come if she ever changed her mind or needed his help. Shockingly, the next day, Yang Xiao helped Xiaofu without having to be asked. He traced the whereabouts of the celestial sword, and after finding it, he secretly placed it in the courtyard of the Ame sect headquarters. With that, Xiaofu no longer had to look for the missing sword. Of course, the Ame sect leader had no idea that Yang Xiao had returned the sword. Then she thanked with great emotion any good person who had put the sword there. 10 years later, Golden Lion, 5th Wudong, Yanshushu, and Wuji are still living on that isolated island. Golden Lion enjoys life with his adopted son, although he still hasn't discovered the Dragon Saber's secret. 5th Wudong had advised Golden Lion several times not to place his hopes on the Dragon Saber's power, which he thought was just a rumor. But Golden Lion's grudge against his former teacher, Cheng Kun, was too great, which made him still hopeful of gaining the power of the Dragon Saber. To make 5th Wudong and the others understand why he hates Cheng Kun so much, he tells them about his past. So in the past, Golden Lion was a student of Cheng Kun ever since he was a child. At 28, he decided to separate from Cheng Kun and marry a woman. From that marriage, he had a son whom he named Wuji. But one night, Cheng Kun came to Golden Lion's residence while fishing with his friends. Cheng Kun, under the influence of alcohol, saw Golden Lion's wife and was smitten by her beauty. So he did horrible things to her in the living room, refusing to let her go despite her screams and begging. Her screams were then heard by Golden Lion's father, who rushed to the scene and tried to stop Cheng Kun. But, of course, his father was no match for him. Without further ado, Cheng Kun killed the entire Golden Lion family, from father, mother, wife, and children. He committed that because he did not want to leave any witnesses knowing of his crimes. But in the end, Golden Lion found out the truth, and since then, he started practicing deadly moves to kill his former leader, not caring if those moves damaged his own body. Ironically, Cheng Kun had gone into hiding after carrying out the assassination, and that frustrated Golden Lion. So to lessen his frustration, he started his massacre and made it look like Cheng Kun was doing it. At least, Golden Lion could tarnish Cheng Kun's good name in the martial world by doing that. It would be even better if he could lure Cheng Kun out of his hiding place. But it turned out that Cheng Kun was not that stupid. He still refused to come out of hiding, thus forcing Golden Lion to think of a new tactic, killing 1st Wudong. If Golden Lion succeeded, he hoped it would shake the martial world and make Cheng Kun curious. Hence, Golden Lion set out to carry out its mission one day. But on the way, he ran into a monk from the Shaolin sect, who informed him that his current ability was still not enough to defeat Cheng Kun, let alone killing him. His strength wouldn't even be able to injure Cheng Kun. Annoyed, Golden Lion then asked the monk what he should do. The monk offered a pact allowing him to try to hit the monk 13 times. If Golden Lion's punches could injure him, he would have summoned Cheng Kun from his hiding place. But if he failed to harm the monk, he would have to forget his revenge plan. Hearing that, Golden Lion accepted the offer enthusiastically. But it turned out that his attacks didn't hurt the monk at all. However, that doesn't mean he gave up. Next, he cunningly pretended he would hurt himself in front of the monk. As a holy man, the monk certainly couldn't allow Golden Lion to commit the sin of ending his own life, so he tried to stop him. At this moment, Golden Lion finally found a golden opportunity. With the monk lowering his defenses, he attacked the monk with full force, causing him to be sent flying and vomiting blood. Turned out that Golden Lion's attack ended very fatally for the monk. Before he breathed his last, the monk told him that the only way he could defeat Cheng Kun was to get hold of the Dragon Saber and uncover the secret of his strength. After saying that, the monk died. Unfortunately, the monk did not have time to reveal where Golden Lion could find the Dragon Saber and how someone could unlock the weapon's secret. But at least that information made Golden Lion's focus on the Dragon Saber. He even vowed never to kill innocent people and slander Cheng Kun again. By the way, the son of 5th Wudong and Yin Shushu had heard stories of Golden Lion's past. The next day, Golden Lion revealed something unexpected to 5th Wudong and his family. Over the past few years, he had regularly checked the wind direction until he concluded that they could use the wind to sail back to the mainland. Even so, he did not want to return unprepared. So a few days before they set sail, Golden Lion trained Wuji intensively and taught him martial arts. It turned out that he had his own reasons for training Wuji so hard. It was because he realized that he couldn't accompany Wuji away. On the day of departure, Golden Lion refused to come with 5th Wudong and his family. He chose to stay on the Ice Fire Island, reasoning that his decision was for the good of all of them. because if he went with them, he was worried it would only put them at risk and danger. Golden Lion said he had many enemies because of his past heinous deeds, and he was sure that one day one of them would find him if he returned to the mainland. Moreover, he had a dragon saber, which made him a definite target for all warriors. Therefore, Fifth Wudong and his family realize they will never be able to change Golden Lion's mind, so they give him their last respects and leave him alone on the island. After several days of sailing the seas, Fifth Wudong and his family came across 2 large ships carrying people from the Heavenly Eagle and Kunlun sect engaged in a fierce battle. Without thinking, Fifth Wudong and his family jumped on one of the large ships to stop the conflict. And unexpectedly, Fifth Wudong found one of his brothers on the ship, Second Wudong, helping the Kunlun sect. Knowing that Fifth Wudong and Yin Shushu had now become husband and wife, the people of the Heavenly Eagle sect couldn't help but stop fighting. But the people of the Kunlun sect refused to make a truce. They wanted to settle for revenge for the incident 10 years ago when Yin Shushu publicly displayed the dragon saber. Many of the victims were from the Kunlun sect, and they accused the Heavenly Eagle sect of being responsible for the disaster. Not wanting the misunderstandings to drag on, Fifth Wudong explained that the deaths of members of various sects during the Dragon Saber exhibition and how many people lost their sanity at that time were all the work of Golden Lion, not the Heavenly Eagles. The leader of the Kunlun sect certainly didn't necessarily believe that explanation. If, indeed, Golden Lion killed many people 10 years ago, where would he be now? Yin Shushu was well aware that the people of the Kunlun sect would try to kill Golden Lion once they found out about his existence. So to protect her foster brother, she chose to lie, saying Golden Lion died about 9 years ago. Unfortunately, the innocent Wuji accidentally exposed his mother's lie, saying that Golden Lion was still alive. The Kunlun leader could tell from Wuji's tone that he was very close to Golden Lion, so he started bombarding Wuji with questions, hoping he would reveal Golden Lion's location to them. But still, Wuji refused to tell them where Golden Lion was. To calm the situation, Second Wudong asked the Kunlun people to give them 3 months before they could jointly decide on the matter. After all, this matter concerned many major sects, and it would be best if they discussed it together to come to terms with it. Fortunately, the Kunlun people agreed to the proposal. So, in the next 3 months, Fifth Wudong should be able to explain what actually happened 10 years ago. The matter regarding Golden Lion could be postponed for the time being, but Eagle Prince, Yin Shushu's older brother, felt that they still had one more problem to settle. He didn't want Yin Shushu to come with her husband to Wudong because she had injured Third Wudong 10 years ago. Eagle Prince was worried that Third Wudong would know about it, and if it was discovered, her life would be in danger. However, Yin Shushu still insisted on going with her husband. Now she was Fifth Wudong's wife, which meant she had to go with him even though she knew it would be too risky. After a while passed, Fifth Wudong and his family finally arrived at the central mainland. When they walked towards the Wudong territory, they found the Mongolian warriors oppressing the common citizens. However, Second and Fifth Wudong couldn't stand seeing the cruelty, so they stepped in to save people. But to their surprise, one person had amazing martial arts skills among the Mongolian warriors. Then that man took advantage of the chaos to kidnap Wuji, and Yin Shushu could do nothing to prevent him. Instead, she was hit by that man's secret weapon while chasing them. Even Second Wudong failed miserably when trying to save Wuji. He lost in a short battle against the mysterious warrior. Not knowing where the warrior had fled, Fifth Wudong and the others were forced to continue to their original destination, hoping to find information about Wuji during their journey there. Unfortunately, until they arrived at the Wudong headquarters, they never got the information they hoped for. Regardless, his brothers and the Wudong leader greeted the 3 of them enthusiastically. The only exception was Sixth Wudong, who didn't like Yin Shushu much. That was because his fiancée, Xiaofu, had been kidnapped by Yang Xiao of the Ming sect, who incidentally still had ties to the Heavenly Eagle. And apparently, Xiaofu had never returned to the Ame sect ever since she was kidnapped by Yang Xiao. But Fifth Wudong and Yin Shushu didn't have time to think about Xiaofu now. Soon after meeting his leader, Fifth Wudong tells him about Wuji's kidnapping, hoping his leader can help him find his son. Unfortunately, his leader could not help him. His leader didn't know who the warrior with great strength was and which sect he belonged to, even after he saw the scars on Second Wudong's hands. The next morning, the sect leader celebrated his 100th birthday, which practically made many guests arrive at the Wudong headquarters to join in the celebration. Unexpectedly, it turned out that many uninvited guests had intruded into the party, which made First Wudong suspect that they had come to seek information about Golden Lion or the Dragon Saber, and the suspicions were finally confirmed. So, those uninvited guests had indeed come to find out the whereabouts of Golden Lion, and they knew that Fifth Wudong had useful information for them. The news about it had even spread to several major sects. Soon after, the higher-ups of the other sects demanded Fifth Wudong tell the truth and tell them where they could find Golden Lion. In response, he still stubbornly refused to inform them, and he told them why. It was because now he and Golden Lion had sworn to keep each other safe. Shortly after, the tension in the room escalated after First Wudong held the Shaolin sect responsible, which he accused of being the cause of Third Wudong's illness. So as revenge, first Wudong challenged 3 Shaolin monks to fight against the 7 Wudong warriors. But because 3rd Wudong is currently still crippled and weak, they need one additional person to complete their formation of 7 warriors. So they asked Yin Shushu to replace him. For that, she had to go to 3rd Wudong and ask for his blessing to replace him. Reluctantly, Yin Shushu entered 3rd Wudong's room with the rest of the brothers and politely tried to talk to him. Here, Eagle Prince's worries became real. As soon as he heard Yin Shushu's voice, 3rd Wudong immediately knew that she was the one who attacked him with the poisoned needle 10 years ago and left him in his current miserable state. But after thinking for a while, he decided to hide that fact from his brother so as not to cause an unnecessary commotion. But beyond his expectations, Yin Shushu instead admitted that it was she who had injured him. Hearing that shocked 5th Wudong. He never thought that the wife he had lived with for the past 10 years was the cause behind 3rd Wudong's suffering. Yin Shushu herself shows guilt for her past actions. She even held out a sword at 5th Wudong, asking him to punish her. However, 5th Wudong refused to do so. Instead, he went out of the room and met the representatives of the entire sect, calling them all hypocrites. He knew that the sects wanted Golden Lion's location not out of revenge or anything but to get their hands on the dragon Saber. However, he wouldn't sell his adopted brother to them, and as proof, he bowed down to his leader and asked him to find Wu Ji. After that, he drew his sword and hurt himself in the presence of the sect's representatives. A few seconds later, the warrior who had kidnapped Wu Ji finally appeared and offered a deal. He would return Wu Ji if they told him where to find Golden Lion, but the Wudong leader refused to accept the deal. Instead, he jumped onto the tower and attacked the warrior. In just a few strokes, the warrior felt the height of the Wudong leader's strength. So to save his own life, the warrior was forced to hand over Wu Ji to them and then run away from there. Wu Ji is certainly happy to be reunited with his mother, but as soon as he saw his father had died, his happiness turned into sadness. He cried in Yin Shushu's arms, who asked him to remember the faces of everyone around them, because they were the ones responsible for the death of his father. In revenge, Yin Shushu then pretended to whisper something to the head of the Shaolin monk. Obviously, it made the other sects angry because they thought Yin Shushu was giving the head monk valuable information. The angry crowd immediately flocked to the monk, demanding he tells them the information Yin Shushu had given him. But apparently, it was just her trick to confuse them. She informs Wu Ji that she deliberately whispered false information to the monk so the sects couldn't find Golden Lion and Dragon Saber. After saying that, she decides to catch up with her husband by choosing to die, causing Wu Ji to faint. After the incident, the Wudong leader takes Wu Ji inside, where he attempts to heal him. But Wu Ji's condition worsened, causing the Wudong leader to suspect something was wrong with him. Sure enough, it turned out that Wu Ji was hit by an ice palm move, one of Shaolin's signature moves that attacked the victim's internal organs and froze them from the inside. This move is actually considered vanished, so it's rare for people to be able to provide an antidote to this move. The only thing that can remove the effects of the ice palm is the 9 Suns technique, but people believe that this magic technique has also vanished. Even so, the Wudong leader kept trying to treat Wu Ji using all his knowledge and potions, but all that could only minimize the cold inside his body. No matter how powerful the Wudong leader was, he could not completely heal Wu Ji because the poison from that stance had already seeped deep into his body. The next day, White Eagle and Eagle Prince came to Wudong's base to take Wu Ji to their place. As his grandfather and uncle, they wanted to take care of Wu Ji, who had lost his parents. But the Wudong leader refused their request since he had promised Wu Ji's parents to take care of him until he grew up. While they were arguing over Wu Ji's custody, the poison in his body suddenly returned and made him fall unconscious, so the Wudong leader had to take care of him again. And it was here, by seeing how the Wudong leader took care of Wu Ji, White Eagle finally understood that the only thing that could keep Wu Ji alive was the Wudong leader's inner strength. Unfortunately, he couldn't bring Wu Ji to the Heavenly Eagle sect's headquarters. But still, Wu Ji couldn't be left like that forever. For this reason, the Wudong leader plans to take him to the headquarters of the Shaolin sect, where he might be able to learn the 9 Suns style. Thus, intending to heal Wu Ji, the Wudong sect leader takes him to the headquarters of the Shaolin sect. There, he tells the monks about Wu Ji and hopes they can teach him the 9 Suns technique. Unfortunately, the monk refused his request, even though he had thrown away his pride by begging and bowing to them. The reason for the refusal was that the monks thought Wu Ji was descended from the Heavenly Eagle, a sect considered evil. Not only that, the monk even looked down on the Wudong sect leader because he had previously stolen the moves belonging to the Shaolin sect. So, it was true the Wudong leader had actually secretly studied the Shaolin sect's techniques and arts when he was younger. But one day, he knew that the Shaolin sect does not allow outsiders to learn their styles. So he decided to escape from being hunted by the monks, and after a few years, he founded a new sect which he named Wudong. But still, hearing his foster grandfather being insulted and looked down upon like that made Wu Ji furious. He snapped at the monks before asking the Wudong leader to leave there. When they got home, Wu Ji thought he didn't want to continue to burden the Wudong sect leader. So that night, after the old man fell asleep, Wu Ji sneaked out of the Wudong sect headquarters. But before leaving, Wu Ji writes an apology for leaving without telling him. Wuji promised he would return after finding a cure for his illness, although he didn't know where to find it. On the way, Wuji's illness recurred while on the trip. Luckily, he was found by a local girl named Jiro, who helped him and took him to her home. There, Jiro and her father take care of Wuji as best they can, although they don't know what illness he has. But her father knew someone from the Ming sect named Yuchun, and he knew the sect had a great healer who could cure any disease. He was sure the healer could cure Wuji. However, Wuji rejected his proposal, considering that his illness was not an ordinary disease that could be cured by any healer. Instead, he intended to leave immediately because he didn't want to bother Jiro and her father. Seeing Wuji's stubbornness, Jiro again tried to stop him from leaving. She showed him her hand, saying she got hurt while helping him, so he must be responsible and help her work. Feeling guilty, Wuji doesn't leave. Instead, he helps Jiro harvest the oranges as an apology. It didn't take long for them to become close friends. After a few days of spending time together, they are already behaving like siblings. And as a result, Wuji's life spirit increased drastically. He promised Jiro that he would not leave her and that he would try to find a way to cure his illness. But one day, the problem came back. When Wuji helps Jiro trade in the market, they see Jiro's father being arrested and interrogated by the soldiers, who want to know where his friend Yuchun is. They suspected Yuchun of being a spy for the Ming sect, and he had to be killed. However, Jiro's father stubbornly refuses to reveal Yuchun's whereabouts to them, so the soldiers, who have run out of patience, decide to kill him right in front of Jiro's eyes. After killing him, the soldiers turn their attention to Jiro and Wuji. But before they could harm them, the person they were looking for, Yuchun, suddenly attacked the soldiers and monks that had gathered there. Unfortunately, at that time, Yuchun was alone, and there were a lot of monks. Slowly but surely, Yuchun became overwhelmed by his enemies, so he was nearly defeated. Luckily, the Wudong sect leader arrives just in time to save him. With just one swipe of his weapon, he could overwhelm the enemies and send them running as fast as they could. But at the same time as the enemies left, Wuji fainted again due to the poison in his body. Yuchun, the healer, quickly took him to his place, and after listening to the explanation from the Wudong sect leader about Wuji's illness, he claimed that he knew a great healer who might be able to cure Wuji. The healer was in a place called the Butterfly Valley, and Yuchun was able to take Wuji there. The only problem was that the healer was known to have a bad temper and would only treat those from the Ming sect. If other people came, he would let them die without checking on them. Hearing this information, the Wudong sect leader asked Yuchun to promise not to let Wuji join the Ming sect no matter what. The next day, their farewell came, and Wuji went to the Butterfly Valley with Yuchun, while Jiro accompanied the Wudong sect leader to the headquarters. But before they parted ways, Jiro gave Wuji a handkerchief as a memento, a sign of their friendship. Long story short, Yuchun and Wuji arrived at their destination after crossing a steep landscape. Even though, as they expected, the healer refused to treat Wuji because he was not from the Ming sect. He said he doesn't want to make exceptions to the rule. The rejection, however, did not make Yuchun just give up. He kept begging the healer to treat Wuji to the point where he sounded insistent. Inevitably, that angered the healer. Then, he kicked them out harshly while emphasizing that he would not change the rules at any time. Seeing Yuchun beaten back to the floor, Wuji's turn was to get angry. He pointed his finger at the healer, accusing him of being fake because it's impossible for a real healer to refuse to treat a patient. Because of that, the healer reflexively grabbed Wuji's hand, which was stretched towards him, intending to scold him. But unexpectedly, the healer discovered something when he touched Wuji's hand. He realized the ice palm poison was flowing into Wuji's blood and immediately brought him inside. The healer felt curious and challenged to research the poison. If successful, he could find an antidote for the poison, and there was no one more suitable to be a guinea pig than Wuji. Apparently, the healer was great. Even though he couldn't heal Wuji completely, his healing techniques could drastically reduce the chill within Wuji's body, and he did it on the first day. The next day, while doing research for Wuji, the healer discovered that Wuji was interested in healing techniques, so he lent Wuji acupuncture books and told him to study them all. The healer was amazed to see Wuji was not only interested in medicine, he even studied books almost non-stop for a day and a night. Moreover, he could quickly understand the knowledge contained in those books. So the healer, without hesitation, lent Wuji other books containing knowledge at a higher level. After several days of studying the books, Wuji understood most medicinal theories. But there was one part he had trouble understanding, so he asked the healer, who immediately noticed that it contained a method for making medicine to treat Yuchun's wounds. Yes, Yuchun was injured from his last fight, and Wuji wanted to heal his savior. Even so, the healer refused to explain the parts Wuji didn't understand and told him to understand them without his help. Annoyed, Wuji decided to make his own medicine despite his minimal knowledge. If Yuchun's condition worsens after taking Wuji's concoction, it would be normal. Later that night, he even had a high fever. Feeling responsible, Wuji goes back to studying the books to find the right formula for medicine, and he managed to do it. Yuchun finally recovered after Wuji treated him with an acupuncture therapy technique that even the healer had never seen before. After fully recovering, Yu Chun decides to see the Wudong sect leader to get an update about Wu Ji's situation. As for Wu Ji, he was left alone with the healer so he could fully recover. During that period, Wu Ji learned about medicine directly from the healer. Until several years passed, Wu Ji had grown into a teenager. Though it was a pity, the healer still couldn't find a way to expel all the poison in Wu Ji's body. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Xiaofu works as a vegetable seller at the market. So, she never returned to the Ame sect and even had a daughter she named Yang Buhui. But one day, when Xiaofu was talking to Buhui, she found a sign that she recognized. The sign indicated that her friends were in danger, so she followed the signs which directed her to a tavern. Surprisingly, she found many warriors from various sects gathered in the tavern. Xiaofu didn't know why the warriors had gathered there, but they were most likely preparing to fight someone. A few moments later, she finally discovered why the warriors were there. It turned out that they were trapped by an old woman named Golden Flower, who, as soon as she entered the tavern, immediately attacked them all with poisons. Amazingly, Golden Flower gave a different poison to each person. She didn't tell them why she trapped and attacked them, but she said that her poisons could only be cured by one person, the healer who resided in the Valley of the Butterflies. With this information, the warriors departed for the valley. But it turns out the healer is now suffering from smallpox. So when Wu Ji told him that many people were asking him to treat them, he asked Wu Ji to kick them out because he didn't want his smallpox to spread to other people. Thus, Wu Ji returned to the people and informed them that the healer was not in a condition to treat the patient because he was ill. Suddenly, Wu Ji saw Xiaofu among the poisoned people. His conscience was touched as soon as he saw her, especially when she had to be carried by Buhui. And so Wu Ji decided to treat those people himself, of course, with the healer's instructions. However, their illness recurred the next day, making them think Wu Ji just wanted to play a trick on them. They were so angry they even wanted to attack him. Luckily, Xiaofu quickly stopped them before Wu Ji was injured. That night, Wu Ji wanted to consult with the healer because he suspected that each of their patients had been exposed to a different poison, and that was why they had not recovered even though they had been given an antidote. But before Wu Ji entered the healer's room, he found a woman sneaking into the house. The woman's presence was also noticed by Xiaofu, who tapped her so that she couldn't move. It turns out that the mysterious woman is the goddess of poison, the healer's wife. So, the goddess of poison was highly skilled at concocting poisons, the opposite of her husband, who worked as a healer. The couple is always competing to prove which of them is more powerful. In that way, the goddess of poison would poison people, and the healer would try to heal them. If the healer can treat his patients, he is the winner. One day, Golden Flower and her husband came to the healer after they were hit by a deadly poison. But because the healer held on to his principle, where he was only willing to heal people from the Ming sect, he only gave Golden Flower an antidote to Ming members. On the other hand, he refused to heal her husband from outside the Ming sect. Sadly, her husband died from poison after the healer left him alone. And that was the reason behind Golden Flower's grudge. She deliberately poisoned the warriors and ordered them to go to the healer. She wanted to prove whether the healer consistently held on to his principles. If she found the healer willing to treat the warriors, who were not members of the Ming sect, she would kill the healer as revenge for letting her husband die. It turned out that this was not the first time the Golden Flower had tested the healer. She had been doing it for the past few years to the point where the healer and the goddess of poison were tired of her terror. And now, because they had reached their limit, they decided to end their lives. A while later, Golden Flower came to check on the situation at the healer's house. But she had to swallow her disappointment after discovering the healer and his wife had died before she could get her revenge. With great annoyance, she left the place. Soon after, Golden Flower thinks she should have checked carefully whether the healer was really dead because moments after she left, Wu Ji found his teacher and the goddess of poison still breathing. And so he rushed to concoct an antidote to seal the poison within both of their bodies. Fortunately, the experiment was successful. Finally, they recovered. Because of this, the healer was very proud of Wu Ji, even though he had never officially adopted him as a student. Then he passed his most treasured medicine book on to Wu Ji, as did the goddess of poison, who gave him books on poisons. The incident just now made them realize that it was time for them to retire and hide somewhere, especially considering Golden Flowers could come back at any moment if she knew they were still alive. So the next day, Wu Ji and Xiaofu made 2 fake graves for the healer and goddess of poison to trick Golden Flower. That way, they could live peacefully in their places of seclusion without worrying about Golden Flower's threat. Not only that, but Wu Ji also prepared an antidote for the warriors who had not yet recovered. But then, Golden Flower still wanted to confirm that the healer was really dead. So a few days later, she sent one of her students, Yin Li, to scout the situation at the healer's house. Unfortunately, Yin Li was not very good at stalking because Wu Ji caught her when she was lurking from behind a tree. Soon after, they chatted for a while before Yin Li returned to her leader and announced that the healer and his wife had indeed died. Hearing that, Golden Flower couldn't help but feel sad, disappointed that she couldn't kill the healer with her hands. So since there was nothing she could do while staying there, she invited Yin Li to return to their home on Snake Island. However, Yinli told her leader that she had talked to Wuji. From there, she knew he was suffering from a serious illness. She begged Golden Flower to help him. Intrigued, Golden Flower agreed and followed her student to Wuji's place. But just by holding his hand, she knew she would never be able to treat it. In fact, according to her, Wuji wouldn't be able to live much longer. Their conversation led to Wuji's origins and identity, and it was from there Golden Flower finally learned that he was the son of Yin Shushu and 5th Wudong. As one of the parties interested in the dragon Saber, Golden Flower immediately demanded Wuji inform her of the whereabouts of Golden Lion. But once again, Xiaofu comes to rescue Wuji, who tries to run away as soon as he gets the chance. But he only had time to run to the healer's house because Yinli managed to catch him there. Unfortunately, things worsened after the Ame sect leader came to look for Xiaofu. Previously, she heard that Xiaofu was at the healer's house, so she brought a few of her students to accompany her to find Xiaofu. Sure enough, she found Xiaofu there, though she didn't expect Golden Flower to be there. Shortly after, a fight between the Ame sect leader and Golden Flower ensued. Their strengths were truly equal, causing their duel to be fierce. Soon after, the Ame sect leader told her student to take out the celestial sword. With just one sword slash, she broke Golden Flower's staff, forcing her to admit defeat. With a heavy heart, Golden Flower asked Yinli to leave immediately, but Yinli didn't want to leave without Wuji. Thus she forced him to come with them, even though he refused. When Wuji bit her hand, Yinli finally let go of him and left with Golden Flower. With the distractions gone, the Ame sect leader can now interrogate Xiaofu about why she has disappeared for the past 10 years. Realizing that it would be useless if she lied, Xiaofu finally confessed about her relationship with Yang Xiao and about how she got pregnant. She said she was afraid to return to Ame because she knew her leader would disapprove of their relationship. At first, the Ame sect leader suspected that Xiaofu was tricked or coerced by Yang Xiao into having a baby. But after she finds out that Xiaofu gave her daughter the name Buhui, which means no regrets, she realizes that they really love each other, which gave the leader a good idea. The Ame leader said she promised Xiaofu that she would inherit the Ame leader position if Xiaofu returned to Yang Xiao and killed him. But, of course, Xiaofu refused to do the order. She didn't care about the leader's position or if she had to die for disobedience. She insists she would never kill his husband. And so, the Ame sect leader was forced to kill Xiaofu because she couldn't allow her student to become a traitor. But they didn't realize that Wuji and Buhui were shocked to see all that through the gap in the door. Then they waited for the Ame sect leader and her students to leave before approaching Xiaofu, who was dying. With her remaining life, Xiaofu gives her last wish to Wuji to deliver Buhui to Yang Xiao. She also gave him the Ming sect ID so Yang Xiao would be able to recognize them. After burying Xiaofu, Wuji didn't want to waste any more time. He took Buhui to where her father was even though he was still mourning her mother's death. Their journey took weeks and they had to pass through deserts and snowfields. Luckily, Wuji and Buhui made it safely to the Kunlun mountain area, their destination, where they met two members of the Kunlun sect who were burying something. It turned out that they had prepared to harm Yang Xiao, who was strolling. Seeing that, Wuji swiftly shouted, warning him to stop moving. Realizing their plan had failed, the two members of the Kunlun sect shot arrows at Yang Xiao before attacking him with swords. However, he was too strong for them. He dodged their attacks easily as he beat them. Once the situation was clear, Wuji introduced himself and Buhui to Yang Xiao, who was delighted that he could meet his daughter. Although at the same time, he was also sad to know that his wife had died, especially after he heard that she had been killed for refusing to do the Ame sect leader's orders. With this, Wuji's mission was accomplished, and he fulfilled his promise to Xiaofu. He then said goodbye to Yang Xiao to continue his journey, even though Yang Xiao asked him to stay with them. He even promised to teach Wuji some self-defense techniques to thank him for accompanying Buhui and saving her life. However, Wuji politely declines the offer, reasoning that he is a descendant of Wudong, which means he can't learn martial arts from other sects. Instead of being offended, Yang Xiao respected his decision. He thought Wuji had integrity and loyalty regardless of his age, so he told Wuji not to hesitate to ask for his help if he had difficulties. That way, Yang Xiao could repay his debt. Several years passed since then, and Wuji grew into a fine young man. He was still traveling, searching for a cure for his illness, and one day, he came across a monkey being chased by a pack of dogs. Being a kind man, Wuji couldn't bear to see the monkey being hurt, so he beat the dogs to protect the monkey. However, his illness shows up at the wrong time, making him lose consciousness and collapse. But to his surprise, when he woke up, Wuji found himself in the house of a rich merchant's daughter. The girl introduced herself as Chuzan and took him on a tour of her spacious house. And then they met her two cousins, who had heard that Chuzan had gotten a new servant who was good at martial arts. Curious, one of her cousins challenged Wuji to a duel. At first, Wuji thought they were just sparring, so he didn't fight seriously. But his opponent apparently didn't hesitate to beat him, making Wuji a little embarrassed. Then he deploys Wudong's signature move, allowing him to defeat his opponent instantly. Unbeknownst to them, Chuzan's father was observing the fight from afar. Soon after, he approached them and criticized Chuzan and her cousins. Not only that, he even slapped Chuzan because she was considered to treat guests very impolitely. So as an apology, he orders her to kneel down and beg Wuji for mercy. Not long after that, Chuzan's uncle, who had just returned from his business trip, entered the house crying sadly. He cried when he heard the news about the death of 5th Wudong. Unexpectedly, everyone in the room broke down when they heard the sad news, making Wuji a little confused. He didn't know that Chuzan and her family knew his father well, to the extent that his death was enough to make them weep bitterly. In fact, Chuzan's father was good friends with 5th Wudong. 5th Wudong even helped him when his family was in great trouble. Since then, Chuzan's family has considered him their hero. So when they heard the news of 5th Wudong's death, they made an altar in his honor. But the fact that his father was close to Chuzan's father wasn't the only thing that surprised Wuji that day. Because later on, Chuzan's uncle told him that he had brought Golden Lion back to the Central Plains, and the other sects already knew about his return. Without a doubt, all the sects would definitely attack the house to seek revenge on Golden Lion and snatch the dragon Saber from him. That's why Chuzan's father asked Wuji to leave there immediately. He was afraid that Wuji would get into trouble if he stayed longer in his residence. But Wuji instead decided to participate in the upcoming battle, so Chuzan's father couldn't help but allow him to join them. To ward off the invading sects, Wuji and the others chose to burn down their homes and academy, then hid in the basement. There, Wuji is brought to meet Golden Lion, who suddenly attacks all of them strangely. It turned out that the person they said was Golden Lion was fake. At this point, Wuji was convinced that Chuzan's family were good and trustworthy people, so he told them he would take them to the Golden Lion's hideout on the Ice Fire Island. And without wasting time, they prepared everything they needed to sail to the island. However, when night came and Wuji was lying on the bed, Chuzan sneaked into his room and punched him. It turned out that he was only pretending to be asleep, so he could easily free himself with the technique his adoptive father had taught him. Still, he was curious about why Chuzan punched him and what exactly she would do, so he came out of his room to check. And apparently, Chuzan was seen interacting intimately with her cousin, like a pair of lovers. But their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of Chuzan's father, who comes to scold her for being careless in watching Wuji. Hearing his name being called, Wuji became suspicious. His trust in the family was immediately shattered, so he followed them and eavesdropped on their conversation from behind the door. Then Wuji finally realized that Chuzan and her family were trying to set him up here. Like the other sects, they also craved Golden Lion and Dragon Saber locations. Chuzan's father could tell that Wuji was the son of 5th Wudong after he saw Wuji use Wudong-style moves when dueling with his nephew. And after that, they started acting to gain Wuji's trust. He was even willing to burn down his academy to smooth out his plans. In fact, the fake Golden Lion is none other than one of his relatives whom he ordered to cooperate in deceiving Wuji. Knowing the family's identity and goals, Wuji decides to run away from them. But unfortunately, his illness recurred again, making it difficult for him to run from their pursuit. The chase eventually brought Wuji to the brink, and feeling that he had no other choice, he threatened them that he would jump if they kept pushing him to find Golden Lion. But they knew Wuji was serious about his threats, so they continued their act, trying to convince him that they had no ill will towards him. But now their theatrics can no longer fool him, who would rather jump off the cliff than cooperate with them. To his surprise, Chuzan's father bravely jumped to catch him. Unfortunately, Chuzan's father and Wuji got stuck in a tree trunk against the cliff wall. But they couldn't go back up because the cliff was too steep for them to climb, nor could they go down because the distance between them and the ground was too high. So they got stuck in a small patch in the middle of a cliff. Feeling frustrated, Chuzan's father started blaming Wuji for making them trapped there. He was so annoyed that he even tried to strangle Wuji. Unfortunately, Wuji wasn't ready to fight, so he escaped by entering a cavern in the cliff wall. Fortunately, Wuji had no trouble getting through the hole, unlike Chuzan's father, who instead became stuck there. Then Wuji continued to crawl inside the hole for the next few seconds until he finally found an exit. And how happy he was when he got out of there because he found a very beautiful view of the cave. Afterward, he decided to stay there for a while, ignoring Chuzan's father, who still begged to take him to the Ice Fire Island. One day, while Wuji was picking fruit, he met a large monkey in pain because his leg was caught in a rock. As an animal lover, Wuji rescued the monkey and healed his leg using the medicine he learned in the Butterfly's Valley. Soon after, the monkey showed gratitude by giving him some fruit. Since then, they have become friends. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Jiro, who was previously taken in by the leader of the Wudong sect, has grown into a young woman and a talented warrior, thanks to the training she received in the Ame sect. The leader of the Wudong sect deliberately asked the Ame sect to train her, considering that Wudong only accepts male students. Even at that place, Jiro and the other junior students had to endure unfriendly treatment from their seniors, who looked down on them. Their seniors are strong and agile, as proven when the Ame leader asked them to spar with the junior students. Without significant difficulty, the senior student can subdue her junior, but that doesn't apply to Jiro. Although her abilities are still far from perfect, she can keep up with her seniors. In fact, she could have beaten the senior if she didn't hold back her power. As a result, perhaps because of the embarrassment of almost being defeated, the senior treated her even worse. Despite this, Jiro's abilities still attract the interest of the Ame sect leader. To test Jiro's abilities, she even disguised herself at night and attacked Jiro while practicing alone. As a result, the Ame sect leader was satisfied with her ability, which could fend off her sudden attack. That's why the Ame sect leader asked Jiro to be more serious about her practice so that one day Jiro could replace her as sect leader. But even though the sect leader had advised her, Jiro still held herself back when she sparred again with her senior the next day. When the leader forced Jiro to show her best abilities, it turned out her abilities were far superior to those of her seniors. Later that night, the Ame sect leader took Jiro to the main hall, where a portrait of the sect's founder hangs, to pay their respects. But they weren't there just for that. Next, the Ame sect leader tells Jiro about Xiaofu, who once betrayed her, and reminds her that the leader intends to pass the sect to her soon. But naturally, Jiro still lacked the confidence to inherit the position, considering that she was still not ready to take on the big responsibilities of being a sect leader. Sometime after, the Ame sect leader brings all of her students to Wudong headquarters, where she plans to discuss the possibility of cooperation between the two sects to attack the Ming sect, which was in chaos after their leader's death. But because the Wudong leader was meditating in a faraway place when they got there, they were only greeted by First Wudong and his son Song Chin-su. When Song first saw Jiro, he seemed fascinated with her. The last time he saw her was when they were kids before the sect leader transferred her to Ame's headquarters. Back to the story, although the leader of the Wudong sect still hasn't returned from his meditation, the Ame leader decides to communicate her intention of coming to First Wudong. However, First Wudong refused to respond to her offer, arguing that it was sensitive. So he suggested they wait for the Wudong leader to return before continuing the discussion. At the same time, Wuji seemed to be fast asleep beside the waterfall when the monkey he helped the other day returned with an old monkey who was in pain. Aware of the old monkey's condition, Wuji examined his stomach. It turned out that the monkey was in pain because his stomach was full of books about the Nine Sun style he had been looking for. Wuji immediately read the book carefully. So, the Nine Sun style book is the book that could cure the poison of the ice palm tormenting Wuji. He studied for months until he finally mastered the stance and freed himself from the poison. Afterward, Wuji came out of the cave and returned to where Chuzan's father was. But Chuzan's father still hasn't changed. As soon as he saw Wuji, he immediately attacked him, and it was then that he realized that Wuji's inner strength had increased dozens of times since they had last met. He was even thrown far away just by touching Wuji's shoulder. Curious, Chuzan's father asked about the cause of Wuji's increased power, and he explained that it was likely caused by the Nine Sun style he had mastered. Soon after, Chuzan's father's spirits returned quickly as soon as he heard that. He said he wanted to master the Nine Sun style, so he asked Wuji to give him the books. In response, Wuji said that he had left the books in the cave. However, that answer annoyed Chuzan's father, so he threw Wuji down the abyss and then tried to enter the cave again. But the result remains the same. He got stuck in the hole and had trouble getting out, until finally, he died miserably in that narrow hole. Meanwhile, Wuji fell into a hut that was right beside the cliff. He survived the fall but broke both legs. Back in Wudong, the Ame sect leader and her students must return empty-handed after the Wudong sect refuses to ally with them. But Song, who has fallen in love with Jiro, has different plans than the higher-ups of the Wudong sect. He plans to secretly help the Ame sect to get closer to Jiro. But he realized it would be very risky if he did that alone, so he invited 6th Wudong to join him in helping the Ame sect. Song knew 6th Wudong had a grudge against Yang Xiao, a member of the Ming sect, and he would definitely agree with his plan. And his guess was right. Without thinking much about it, 6th Wudong agreed to his plan. And thus, they try to meet up with the Ame sect leader, whom they met at a restaurant. It turned out that the Ame sect leader was planning to form an alliance with the Wudong sect and all the sects in the Central Plains to jointly destroy the Ming sect. For that, she would first come to Chuzan's house, which was indeed close to the location of the Ming sect headquarters. It was where she would strategize and gather warriors from other sects. The next day, Song brought good news to 6th Wudong. According to him, the monks and other sects had already agreed to assist them in eradicating the Ming sect. And so, 6th Wudong and Song decided to go to the Ming sect headquarters, while the Ame sect leader and her students would follow when the supplies were complete. For the time being, they would still stay at Chuzan's house while finalizing a strategy. Meanwhile, Wuji had woken up from his stupor after falling from a cliff. After some time, he quietly rested in that place until he heard a dog chasing someone. Then Wuji helped the man by throwing stones at the dog because it was biting the man mercilessly. But sadly, Wuji was too late. The man died from the dog's bite wounds. Moments later, Wuji's break session is again interrupted by a woman's appearance with a wound on her face. It turned out that the woman was Yin Li, who used to be a student of Golden Flower. But because they had not seen each other for a long time, neither Wuji nor Yin Li recognized each other. Shortly after, Wuji decided to use a fake name because he was afraid that people would hunt him down again if they found out he was Golden Lion's adopted son. So he introduced himself to Yinli as Anu, a fruit seller. Yinli innocently believed Wuji's lie. She even told Wuji about her past, including how she once met a boy she liked. But the boy refused when she asked him to come with her. Instead, the boy bit her. Hearing that story, Wuji finally realized that the woman in front of him now was Yinli, but he chose to keep his identity secret from her. Yinli herself is basically a kind-hearted woman. So when she discovered that Wuji was paralyzed, she voluntarily offered to carry him. And it was during the trip that Wuji told her about how he was tricked by Chuzan and her family until he finally fell into a ravine, which caused his leg to be injured. Hearing that story makes Yinli sympathetic to him. Then she secretly plans to avenge Chuzan's mistreatment of Wuji. Plus, because she had no friends before, so when she finally finds a friend like Wuji, she wants to please him. Thus, Yinli secretly sneaked into Chuzan's house at night, where she later poisoned Chuzan in retaliation. Unfortunately, she failed to escape from the place because she was blocked by Jiro and her senior, who asked Yinli to give them an antidote. As a result, a battle between them ensued. Fighting two enemies at once proved too much for Yinli. She loses to Jiro and her senior, who she then takes to meet Wuji. That happened because Yinli claimed she kept an antidote for Chuzan in her tent, and how surprised Wuji was when he saw Jiro. He immediately recognized her as the girl who had helped him when he was little, but he chose to play it safe by pretending to be Anu, the fruit seller. Meanwhile, irritated with Yinli's stalling and never providing an antidote, Jiro Sr. decides to attack Yinli and Wuji. She intended to beat them up, so they gave her the antidote, not knowing that Wuji had an inner strength that could send her flying. Seeing that her senior was seriously injured, Jiro finally chose to end the fight so she could bring her senior to be treated at the Chuzan Academy. The next day, after hearing what Yinli did last night, Wuji realized that the Ame sect leader would definitely come for revenge. So he and Yinli decided to leave before the Ame sect leader showed up. They kept moving until one night, when they were resting in an empty house, Wuji accidentally saw Yinli practicing by absorbing her pet spider's poison. It turned out that the wound on her face appeared as an effect of the poison, which her body could not neutralize. Her poison ability does have characteristics like a double-edged sword. The more poison she absorbs, the more disfigured her face will be. When he heard that, Wuji became worried. Several days later, Wuji's worries finally became real. The Ame sect leader and her students managed to find their location. So to protect Wuji, Yinli goes out alone and claims that she has left him because his crippled leg is only a burden to her. But her lies couldn't deceive the leader, who ordered her students to check into the house. However, after searching every room, her students couldn't find Wuji. Still, the Ame leader did not give up. Instead, she used an effective way to lure out a good-natured person like Wuji with threats. She shouted for Wuji, saying that Yinli would die if he didn't show up soon. Sure enough, the threat worked perfectly. A few seconds later, Wuji came out of his hiding place, begging the leader to spare Yinli's life. Jiro also supported him, arguing that it was inappropriate for the leader to kill helpless people like Wuji and Yinli. If others found out, it would damage the reputation of the Ame sect. Luckily, the Ame leader agrees with it. But in exchange, Wuji and Yinli had to accompany them to the Ming sect headquarters as prisoners. As they were on their way to Ming territory, she told her students to hide and set up a trap, as she sensed that some horsemen were going towards them. Sure enough, they saw 3 people from the Ming sect a while later, so she ordered her students to attack the soldiers, knocking them off their horses. Feeling that there was no hope left for them, one of the soldiers released 3 doves from the box in the saddle. It turned out that the 3 men were scouts from the Ming sect, whose job was to confirm whether the other sects would attack them. Fortunately, the Ame sect leader managed to bring down 2 of the 3 doves, but the remaining one escaped unharmed. The dove would eventually deliver a letter to the Ming headquarters, informing the higher-ups that the other sects were on their way to their base. After the dove ran away, the Ame sect leader turned her attention to the 3 soldiers, intending to interrogate them. But before she did, the 3 men chose to die by drinking the poison they had prepared. Even worse, one of her students accidentally touched a poisonous plant while searching through the soldiers' clothes, causing them to lose consciousness. The Ame leader was skilled in martial arts, but she knew nothing about poisons and medicine. She even gives up on healing her student. That is before Wuji said that he knew all kinds of poisons and could concoct antidotes as long as he could obtain useful herbs as raw materials. To convince the leader more, Wuji stuck several acupuncture needles in the student's wrist so the poison would not spread. It turned out that the method succeeded in convincing the leader, who agreed to let Wuji search for the plant under Jiro's supervision. After searching for a while, Wuji and Jiro finally found the herbs growing on the cliff wall. But the current condition of his legs made it impossible for him to climb the cliff, so it was Jiro who had to do it. But she wasn't careful enough. She slipped after picking the plant and would have fallen from a great height if it wasn't for Wuji, who jumped to save her. But instead of thanking Wuji for helping her, Jiro was angry at him. She pointed her sword at him, calling him a liar for lying about being sick. Here, Wuji couldn't give any more excuses, so he took out the handkerchief that Jiro had given him, revealing that he was Zhang Wuji, her childhood friend. The revelation took her by surprise, but more importantly, she is happy to be able to meet her best friend again. Soon after, Jiro and Wuji told their lives after they parted ways, but it didn't last long since they must return to the others waiting for them. Without further ado, Wuji treated the student who had been poisoned by using herbs, and it didn't take long for the student to recover. Later that night, a mysterious figure suddenly appeared and terrorized Wuji and the others when they were all resting in the middle of the forest. But they couldn't see clearly what or who it was since it was so dark. It was only when the sun rose that they could finally see the figure clearly. He was Green Bat, one of the 4 pillars of the Ming sect. In other words, he held the same position as Golden Lion and White Eagle. The Amei's students quickly surrounded and attacked Green Bat, but all of them are no match for him, who ends up getting mad at the camp and kidnapping one of the students. Even the Amei leader couldn't catch up to him. So it turned out that Green Bat had an unmatched flight speed in the Central Plains. Moments later, Green Bat returned to their camp and dumped the student he had kidnapped. But unfortunately, he returned the student to a lifeless state. She died with a bloody wound on her neck, indicating that Green Bat had drunk her blood. This incident made the Amei sect leader raise her vigilance. She warned her students that killing the Ming sect would not be easy, even if they joined forces with the other 6 sects. The Ming sect has members as dangerous as Green Bats. Meanwhile, on the Ming sect side, young Xiao and his daughter, Buhui, were leading troops toward their sect headquarters when they came across a woman crying over her deceased parents. Feeling pity, Buhui asked his father that they take the woman, whose name is Xiao Zhao, with them. Hearing that, young Xiao agreed. He plans to make her an assistant in the headquarters. Arriving at the headquarters, young Xiao found Green Bat sitting insolently on the sect leader's throne with no one around. Astonished, he asked Green Bat where the soldiers and 5 wanderers had gone, who was expected to be the vanguard in repelling the combined attack of the other 6 sects. However, Green Bat seemed uninterested in young Xiao's worries and his intention to protect their sect. Instead, he blamed young Xiao as the one responsible for their sect being torn apart. His hatred for young Xiao made him refuse to help. As if the situation couldn't get any worse, young Xiao found Xiao Zhao's behavior very suspicious. As soon as she was released from his scrutiny, she immediately entered the rooms in the headquarters as if she was looking for something. That made him suspect she was a spy sent by another sect. However, Xiao Zhao denied the accusation, arguing that she was just taking a walk to fill her spare time. Bu Hui also supported her, saying that there was no way she was a spy. But Yang Xiao was still unsure about it. So to prevent something bad, he decided to handcuff Xiao Zhao. Returning to the Amei sect group, they continued their journey toward the Ming sect headquarters, followed by Wuji and Yin Li. On the way, they met Song and 6th Wudong, who were fighting some warriors from the Ming sect. But the Amei sect leader and her students chose not to help them because they could defeat their enemies without difficulty. After that, they joined the Amei sect and resumed their journey. Interestingly, 6th Wudong didn't recognize Wuji when he saw him. And when Yin Li asked him about Wuji's news, 6th Wudong even said that it was very likely that Wuji had already died, considering that when he disappeared before, he was sick from being poisoned by an ice palm. Hearing that, Wuji kept pretending to be anew, thinking it wasn't time for him to reveal his true self to all of them. Later that night, when everyone was asleep, Yin Li asked Wuji to leave the Amei sect and escape to a safe place. Although he initially refuses, Wuji finally agrees to run away because Yin Li keeps pushing him. Thus, they started to carry out their plan. They sneaked their way without making a sound, only to be caught by the senior student outside the camp. Fortunately, Jiro saw them. Without thinking long, she knocked her senior unconscious and helped the 2 captives escape. When the sun had risen, Jiro felt that her task was done. So she said goodbye to Wuji, intending to return to her sex camp. But Wuji tries to stop her and asks her to come with them instead. Because if Jiro returned to camp, she would only be labeled a traitor for helping them escape. So it would be much better if she started a new life with them. Their debate lasted long enough for the Amei sect leader and the female students to catch up with them. And how angry the Amei sect leader was when she saw Jiro with the 2 prisoners. Soon after, the leader slapped Jiro's cheek, making her feel guilty. So to calm her leader's anger, Jiro knelt down to apologize and said she had no bad intentions. She just wanted to repay Wuji for saving her before. But before reaching any conclusion, their conversation was interrupted by signals from the other sects requesting assistance against the Ming warriors. Wasting no more time, the Amei sect leader and her students drew their weapons and rushed to the battle site. The battle ended quickly after the Amei sect leader succeeded in killing the enemy troop leader, causing all soldiers to surrender. But her hatred for the Ming sects was too great, so she refused their surrender. Instead, she tortured the soldiers by hurting their arms. Wuji, who is kind and forgiving, cannot remain silent seeing this cruelty. He begged the Amei sect leader to stop her actions, asking her to spare the helpless warriors. Then the Amei sect leader said she was willing to spare the warriors if Wuji would take their place by taking 3 punches from her. Hearing that, he agreed. But here, the Ame sect leader didn't hold back. She hit Wuji with strength, sending him flying with her first 2 punches. But when she was about to give her the third and final punch, Eagle Prince, amazed at Wuji's heroism, suddenly intervened. Eagle Prince said he would take Wuji's place. Unfortunately, his offer was ignored. Without saying anything more, the Ame sect leader threw her third punch at Wuji. But this time, her punch couldn't hurt him. He could withstand her punch without moving an inch by summoning 100% of the power from the 9 Sun style. Instead, she was blown away after making contact with Wuji. True to her promise, the Ame sect leader released the warriors, who immediately thanked Wuji for protecting them. As a result of his actions, his popularity rose rapidly among the warriors of the Ming sect. Meanwhile, Eagle Prince noticed his daughter was at the battle scene with the Ame sect students. It turned out that his daughter was Yin Li, who had previously decided to leave him to study spider venom, the knowledge taught by her late mother. Because of that, Eagle Prince took Wuji and Yin Li away from there so he could scold her for still studying poison, something he did not like. He was so angry with Yin Li's rebellious behavior that he even wanted to kill her. Luckily, Wuji could calm him, so he didn't do that. All that argument caught them off guard, so they didn't notice that Green Bat was near them. And once again, he kidnaps women for food. The victim is Yin Li. Soon after, Eagle Prince and Wuji tried to chase after Green Bat to save Yin Li, but its flying speed was simply astonishing. A few seconds later, Eagle Prince gives up and lets his daughter be kidnapped. He knew that whoever Green Bats had caught would not survive, so it was useless for them to try to save Yin Li. However, Wuji was still not willing to give up. He continues to track Green Bat, but instead of finding his target, he encounters a monk named Shabude, one of the Ming sect's 5 wanderers. As a member of the Ming sect, Shabude recognized Green Bat's abilities very well, so he advised Wuji to stop chasing him because it would only be a waste of time. Not only that, he even told Wuji about Green Bat's past. So long before this, Green Bat was the same as warriors in general, where he liked to practice martial arts. However, he chose the wrong training method. One day, he was poisoned by an ice palm, and to stop the cold from attacking his body, he was forced to drink human blood. He found it a powerful method, even though it could only temporarily stop the cold. So because of that, he has to drink human blood regularly, just to make he doesn't freeze to death. Shabude is telling Green Bat's background for a reason, to find a moment when Wuji is off guard. When he saw the momentum, he immediately covered Wuji with his bag and carried him away. Elsewhere, Green Bat stopped moving to comfortably drink Yiling's blood, but his cold sickness suddenly recurred just as he was about to bite her neck. As a result, he couldn't drink her blood because his body was shivering, allowing Yiling to run away from him. Moments later, a member of the 5 wanderers accidentally discovered a dying Green Bat. To not let him die, the man transferred his inner strength to Green Bat to ease the pain. After that, he took Green Bat to the headquarters cave owned by the 5 wanderers, where his other 4 comrades had gathered. It turned out that Shabude and Wuji were also there, even though Wuji was still trapped in the bag. The 5 wanderers and Green Bat had planned to gather to discuss their plan, whether they would help the Ming sect fight off the invaders or let it crumble. They had their own opinions on the matter. Still, in the end, they agreed to help Yang Xiao protect their sect, even though they did not like him, who had always been arrogant and felt superior to everyone. Meanwhile, Yang Xiao was still at the Ming sect headquarters, talking to Buhui about the danger. He told Buhui to get out of there quickly because if it was too late, their headquarters would be surrounded by the 6 invading sects, and it would be difficult for her to find a way to escape. However, Buhui stubbornly refused to go, instead volunteering to help Yang Xiao fight. She insisted on staying there, forcing Yang Xiao to lock her in her room and order several soldiers to escort her. That way, at least Buhui would be safer than if she participated in the battle. In the evening, Green Bat and the 5 wanderers arrive at the Ming sect headquarters, informing Yang Xiao that they will be participating in the battle against the 6 sects. Even so, they emphasize that their decision was based on their desire to protect the Ming sect and maintain its reputation. They didn't do it because of Yang Xiao, whom they still hated. At first, despite their hurtful words, Yang Xiao was grateful for their help. But because Green Bat and the 5 wanderers kept teasing and insulting him, Yang Xiao couldn't hold it in any longer. He began showing his true nature, insulting them with extreme arrogance. Needless to say, his arrogance made them angry with him, and so, a battle ensued between them. The chaos allows the monk to attack them. The monk, who claims to be Yuan Chen, has come to take revenge on the Ming sect by destroying them. As a person carrying a revenge mission, Yuan Chen was very talkative. When Yang Xiao asked how he got into their headquarters, Yuan Chen happily explained. He entered the headquarters via a secret route that only the leader of the Ming sect and his family knew and could use. Soon after, Yang Xiao asked how Yuan Chen knew about the secret entrance's existence. So, according to him, the former Ming sect leader's wife told him. Afterward, Yuan Chen revealed secrets that the higher-ups of the sect didn't know, and he let down his guard. Green Bat, who had only been pretending to be injured, took advantage of the opportunity to attack him. The attack left Yuan Chen heavily injured, but he had a little moment to counterattack Green Bat, which also injured him. As a result, everyone in the room couldn't move because they ran out of internal energy. They have to meditate if they want to restore their energy. But at this moment, the 5 wanderers finally realized that Wuji was still trapped in the bag. They asked him to kill Yuan Chen before his strength recovered. However, Wuji couldn't see because his eyes were blocked by the bag, and he had difficulty finding his target. Instead, Yuan Chen managed to attack Wuji and sent him flying into the air. Unfortunately, the attack drained Wuji's inner strength, so he couldn't help but meditate to recover. Then, he finally had the chance to ask about the Ming sect and its goals. He had always wondered why people saw Ming as an evil sect and hated them, even though Wuji himself felt that Ming members weren't as bad as people made out. According to the 5 wanderers, people did have a wrong perception of the Ming sect. They said they never had evil aims. On the contrary, they want to uphold justice while helping the common people by eliminating the corrupt officials from the Mongolian Empire. Because some of the people from the Ming sect were bad, they caused the sect to look like an evil sect to the other sects. While they were talking about the Ming sect's past, Yuan Chen recovered his inner strength and moved again. But instead of killing his opponents quickly, he shows them his true identity. It turned out that his real name was Cheng Kun. He is a former teacher of Golden Lion. When Cheng Kun was young, he fell in love with a woman who was his junior at the place where he practiced martial arts. But their relationship didn't last long because the Ming sect leader snatched her from him. Cheng Kun realized that he couldn't fight against the Ming sect leader, considering he was still very weak. His strength is far behind that of the extraordinary Ming sect leader, so he decided to give in, letting the Ming sect leader take his girlfriend. Several months after that, the woman and the Ming sect leader got married. But since the leader was focused on martial arts, he ignored her, leaving her lonely. Thus, because she had longed for a man's touch, she invited Cheng Kun to meet her in the secret passage, where they later made out several times. Until one day, the leader found out about their affair. He even found his wife and Cheng Kun alone in the secret passage. Enraged, he attacked Cheng Kun. But before his punch hit Cheng Kun, his inner strength turned to attack him, killing the leader instantly. Feeling guilty for her infidelity, his wife decided to die to atone for her sins, and she did it right in front of Cheng Kun. Since then, Cheng Kun has grudged against the Ming sect, and he vows to destroy the sect one day. Then, he made Golden Lion his student in hopes that he would educate him as a partner in his crimes, but Golden Lion ended up disappointing him. After separating and not seeing each other for several years, Cheng Kun heard that Golden Lion had assumed a high position in the Ming sect. After being angry at Golden Lion's betrayal, Cheng Kun decides to take revenge by making him a criminal. He knew that Golden Lion had a bad temper and was easily provoked, so he devised a plan to kill his former student's family. After that, Cheng Kun came to Golden Lion's house one night pretending to be drunk, and then he slaughtered his parents, wife, and child. Sure enough, the killing enraged Golden Lion, making him kill members of other sects to lure Cheng Kun out of hiding. Finally, the plan worked out brilliantly. To this day, people hate the Ming sect, which they consider to be an evil sect. After hearing how his adoptive father was framed, Wuji was furious. Then he used his 9 sons technique to attack Cheng Kun, who accidentally destroyed the bag when he wanted to block Wuji's attack. Realizing that Wuji was no ordinary warrior, and because his inner strength had not fully recovered, Cheng Kun chose to escape from that place through a secret passage. Wuji, who still doesn't know where the secret passage is, becomes confused after discovering Cheng Kun has suddenly disappeared. At this time, while he was busy looking for Cheng Kun, Wuji saw Bu Hui arguing with Xiao Zhao. That was because Bu Hui became suspicious that Xiao Zhao was a spy from another sect, just as Yang Xiao had feared. Wuji, who recognized Bu Hui when he saw her, tried to stop the fight between the two women. He told Bu Hui about his identity, which was enough to make her forget about Xiao Zhao. She was so happy to meet him, who had saved her when they were kids. But a moment later, Wuji remembered that this wasn't the right time for a reunion. He informed Bu Hui that her father was injured and that she had better help him immediately. After Bu Hui left, Wuji continued his search for Cheng Kun by asking Xiao Zhao. Hearing that, she guessed Cheng Kun might have escaped via a secret passage. So, because she felt indebted to Wuji for saving her from Bu Hui, Xiao Zhao showed him the location of the secret passage entrance. Sure enough, Cheng Kun was indeed on the secret passage, and he knew the traps at that place. As soon as he notices that Wuji and Xiao Zhao are chasing him, he activates the trap, which causes a large rock to collapse and trap them. Unwilling to spend the rest of their lives underground, Wuji and Xiao Zhao try to find a way out. They continued to walk, exploring the underground passage until they finally arrived at the room where the skulls of the Ming sect leader and his wife were. They found a cloth not far from the 2 skulls, which Wuji initially thought was just the Ming sect leader's cloth, but it turned out to be no ordinary cloth. After Xiao Zhao wiped her blood on the cloth, they discovered the transferring heaven and earth scripture contained the Ming sect leader's signature move. Besides that, they found a letter the leader wrote and addressed to his wife. Through the letter, Wuji found out about the Ming sect leader's true plan. So there is little explanation about Ming's background. The sect is centered in Persia, and its branches are in China. But because the Central Ming in Persia had an alliance with Mongolia, the Ming leaders in central China chose to break away from the center's influence and declared their independence. He did not want his sect to continue under the control of the Mongolians, who always oppressed people. So for that, the Ming sect leader in China planned to go to Persia, where he would tell the people at the center directly that he and his leading organization would not form an alliance with the Mongols. Unfortunately, his plans were shattered after he learned about his wife's unfaithfulness, which messed up his heart and mind. As a result, his inner strength became damaged and could not be controlled. That's why his inner strength turned to destroy him when he was about to attack Cheng Kun. But before he died, the Ming sect leader had written a will for his wife. In the letter, he asked her to gather all the higher-ups of the Ming sect in the Central Plains and appoint Golden Lion as interim leader. As for who was the leader after Golden Lions, they had to fulfill one condition. The condition is that they must succeed in moving the sacred fire from Persia to the central mainland. Unfortunately, the Ming sect leader's plans were never discovered because his wife died before he could convey his last will to the people. So Wu Ji and Xiao Zhao were the first to read the letter, and that was because they accidentally got caught in the secret passage. But at least, after reading the letter, Wu Ji was even more convinced that the Ming sect was not the sect that people believed it to be. And lucky for Wu Ji and Xiao Zhao, they found a map tucked inside the letter. Using the map, they can find the exit from the secret passage. Although, it turns out that the door can only be opened by using the move of heaven and earth. Thus, Wu Ji was forced to learn the move from the book they found. This move has several levels, which are very difficult to learn. Even the great Yang Xiao took 10 years to master the 2 levels of the move, which made Wu Ji hesitate to learn them. But after Wu Ji tried it, he could master the first level in just a few minutes. That's much shorter than it should be, as a normal person takes around 14 years to master it. However, Wu Ji is not an ordinary person. He was special, and he also mastered the 9 Sun style, which was very helpful in mastering the move of heaven and earth. So Wu Ji successfully mastered the 5th level of heaven and earth move in only half an hour. He only needed 2 more hours to perfect the move to the 7th level. In other words, he is the only human on this earth who masters the moves of the 9 suns and the moves of heaven and earth at the same time. Using this move, Wu Ji was finally able to open the door. And next, he had to move swiftly to prevent a battle between the Ming and the 6 sects. As it turned out, the source of their conflict was simply a misunderstanding, and it was his job to explain it to them. While Wu Ji was studying the move of moving heaven and earth, White Eagle and Eagle Prince seemed to be leading their troops toward the Ming sect's headquarters, intending to assist the sect in its war against the 6 sects. Eagle Prince, who was actually reluctant to take risks by participating in this war, suggested to his father that they let the other sects destroy the Ming. Moreover, Yang Xiao once insulted White Eagles when he visited their headquarters. However, White Eagle rejected his son's suggestion, calling him ignorant. Because regardless of their troubles with the Ming sect and Yang Xiao, they must never forget their origins. The Heavenly Eagle sect was a part of the Ming sect. If the Ming sect had never existed, theirs would also never have existed. So in a way, the relationship between them was like that of a child and a parent. If their parents got into trouble, it was normal for them to come help, no matter if they died in the process. After saying that, White Eagle asked his son and troops to keep moving so they could arrive as soon as possible. But just as they were starting their journey back, they bumped into Cheng Kun, who had just come out of the secret passage. However, Eagle Prince couldn't help but feel suspicious when he saw Cheng Kun. Because of that, he attacked Cheng Kun, who was still recovering from the previous battle. In the end, Eagle Prince can beat him easily. Meanwhile, at the Ming sect headquarters, Yang Xiao received a report that nearly all of his soldiers had been defeated by the 6 sects, who were now at the front gate. Hearing that, Yang Xiao vowed to fight against the invaders, which motivated Green Bat and the 5 travelers to fight alongside him. They would all try to defend the Ming sect no matter what. Soon after, the invaders started fighting with the rest of the Ming army at the entrance. The battle grew fiercer after the Heavenly Eagle sect arrived. Under the command of White Eagle, the Heavenly Eagle troops started assisting the Ming sect by slaughtering the Alliance warriors. But despite having the help of the Heavenly Eagle sect, Ming was still outnumbered by the attackers. It wasn't long before White Eagle began ordering his troops to retreat into the hall, where they tried to buy time by closing the entrance. That short time was enough for White Eagle to be reunited with his siblings. He expressed his readiness to cooperate with them, and once again, they expressed their determination to protect the Ming sect to the last drop of blood. Meanwhile, outside the base, Wu Ji and Xiao Zhao finally managed to get out of the secret passage. And just by looking at the corpses lying on the street, they know the war has started. So without wasting any more time, they rushed towards Ming's headquarters, hoping to end the fight before more victims fell. Sometime later, the invaders had successfully broken into the hall and were ready to finish off everyone from the Ming sect. And it looked like their task would be easy because apart from White Eagle, everyone else in the Ming sect was running out of energy. However, 4th Wudong felt it would be unfair if they ganged up on White Eagles, so he came up with the idea of having White Eagles duel one-on-one against the representatives of the 6 sects. And his proposal was approved by all the sects. Fourth Wudong then volunteered as the first challenger, and even though their duel was fierce, he finally admitted his defeat to White Eagle. The next challenger was Seventh Wudong, but before they could begin their duel, he took the time to bring up the sins of the Heavenly Eagle member who had made Third Wudong sick. Hearing his words made White Eagle feel guilty, and because of that, he deliberately gave in and let Seventh Wudong stab him. By doing so, he hoped it could atone for the sins of Yin Shushu and Eagle Prince 20 years ago. Seeing that White Eagle was seriously injured, First Wudong felt sorry for him. He asked White Eagle to stop interfering in the war because the goal of the Sixth Sect was to destroy the Ming sect. He was confused about why the people of the Heavenly Eagle sect sacrificed their lives protecting Ming sect members. Then White Eagle responded to First Wudong's words with a smile before explaining that he was one of the 4 pillars of the Ming, and even though he had founded his own sect, it was his duty to protect the sect he came from. The answer made his enemies realize that it was useless to persuade White Eagle. So, without a chance to recover, the Kontong sect leader attacked White Eagle with his 7 deadly strikes, causing him to fall to the ground, enraged by the sudden attack. Without hesitation, the Kontong sect leader began to fight seriously, and his overwhelming strength allowed him to break his foe's arms and legs. Seeing his leader beaten like that, the deputy leader of the Kontong sect tried to retaliate by throwing a pole at the holy fire belonging to the Ming sect, intending to destroy the fire. But White Eagle thwarted his efforts. He reflexively jumped in front of the sacred fire and used his body as a shield. As a result, the wound got worse. Convinced that White Eagles had no energy left to hinder them, the Shaolin leader called on all sects to finish off the Ming sect immediately without sparing a single one. At this point, Yang Xiao and the others realized this was their end, so they declared their vows of allegiance to the Ming sect. The people from the 6 sects listened intently as they made the vows. When they finished, the Kontong deputy sect leader jumped in to kill White Eagle. Fortunately, Wuji arrived in time to save his grandfather. He shouted at everyone in the room, telling them he would take White Eagle's place in receiving attacks from everyone in the 6 sects. Annoyed that Wuji interrupted his attack on White Eagle, the Kontong deputy sect leader and his brother attacked him in unison. Surprisingly, Wuji didn't dodge their attacks but allowed their fists to hit his chest. He even took advantage of that moment to channel his internal energy into the Kontong deputy sect leader, healing the old man's internal injuries. Not only that, but Wuji also healed the Kontong sect leader who was seriously injured by White Eagle. His kindness made the Kontong deputy sect leader thank him, but it didn't make them forget their original goal. They would still destroy the Ming sect. For this reason, Wuji explained that the conflict between the Ming sect and other sects was masterminded by Cheng Kun, a monk who used Yuan Cheng. He also explained to them all that Cheng Kun had done to spread people's hatred of the Ming sect. He swore that all his stories were the truth. If there were lies in his story, heaven and earth would destroy him. Hearing Wuji's story made everyone hesitate about continuing their attack on the Ming sect. But then, the leader of the Shaolin sect could not accept that one of its members was accused of being the mastermind behind the conflict. So he asked his students to bring Cheng Kun so everyone could see and interrogate him. Moments later, they brought Cheng Kun into the hall, even though, as we know, he had already died after being killed by Eagle Prince. The Shaolin leader then took advantage of this fact to accuse Wuji, calling him a liar who brazenly slandered the dead. So to teach him a lesson, the monk challenges Wuji to a duel. Wuji accepted the challenge after the monk said that whoever the loser in the duel, he had to leave that place. The monk started the fight by using his flagship move, the Dragon Claw. But because Wuji had mastered the movement of heaven and earth, which was the essence of all moves used by modern sects, he could read the monk's movements and imitate his Dragon Claw move with just a glance. Ironically, the monk was defeated by Wuji using his own style. However, that didn't scare the other sects. Next, the Huasan sect leader stepped up to challenge Wuji, who knew his opponent was a cunning and evil man because his former healer teacher told him that the Huasan sect's leader once killed his wife. And more importantly, that man used a poison fan as his weapon. So when their duel began, the first thing Wuji did was grab a poison fan and wave it at his opponent's face. In just one strike, the Huasan leader's eyes were hurt after being poisoned. After successfully subduing his opponent, Wuji shows everyone that the fan contains a dangerous poison. He promised the Huasan sect leader that he would cure the poison in his eyes as long as he confessed all the crimes he had committed so far. Having no other choice, the leader obeyed Wuji's orders. He admits that he was the one who killed his teacher's wife. After that, he even killed his cousin because his cousin discovered his dark secret. Then, to hide his crimes, he slandered the Ming sect as the perpetrators of the murder of his wife and cousin. This slander eventually made the people of the Huasan sect hate the Ming sect, making them didn't hesitate when the Ame sect invited them to join in the Ming destruction campaign. After knowing their leader's crimes, the 2 brothers from the Huasan sect immediately drew their swords at their leader, intending to kill him. But Wuji stops them, saying he must fulfill his promise by healing the poison in the leader's eyes. So, they could kill him once Wuji finished healing him. The two brothers are grateful for Wuji's help exposing their leader's crimes. Still, they had the duty to prove the strength of their sect's martial techniques before the other sects, so they decided to take the place of their leader in the duel against Wuji. However, because Wuji is a great warrior, he can defeat his enemies easily. Even when the head of the Kunlun sect and his wife joined forces with the two brothers from the Huasan sect, Wuji still came out victorious even though he was only armed with a stick. As a bonus, the Kunlun sect leader and his wife accidentally stabbed the Huasan sect leader in the chaos of the fight, killing him on the spot. After the three great sects admitted their defeat to Wuji, it was now the turn of the Ame sect leader to step up to challenge him. And this time, Wuji had a slightly higher level opponent. The Ame sect leader could destroy his sword with just one strike and force him to keep dodging. Seeing how Wuji kept dodging their leader's attacks, the Ame sect students grew impatient, so they decided to join the fight and attack him simultaneously. But all of them were powerless before he used extraordinary heaven and earth-moving techniques. In just a fraction of a second, Wuji managed to take down all his enemies and shatter their swords. Of all the Ame sect students, only Jiro didn't attack Wuji. Her sword was also untouched cause he didn't attack her. Because of this, the other students suspected that Jiro had a special relationship with him, and the Ame sect leader agreed with that suspicion. So she points her celestial blade at Jiro, demanding she kills Wuji to prove her loyalty to their sect. However, the order left Jiro in a dilemma. But before she could decide what to do, Wuji grabbed the sword and brought her to his side. For the next few seconds, they stared at each other like lovers. In the end, Wuji realizes that he has just done something impolite, and so he gave the celestial sword to Jiro so he could return it to her leader. But the Ame sect leader would not accept the sword. Instead, she orders Jiro to kill Wuji using the sword. She kept screaming, pressing Jiro to finish him off quickly. In the end, because she couldn't stand the pressure, Jiro stabbed Wuji in the chest. Seeing Wuji injured was enough to make the Ame sect leader satisfied. She allows the Wudong sect to complete the duel while killing Wuji. The Wudong people were more willing to not continue the duel considering Wuji's seriously injured condition. On the one hand, they don't want to fight a powerless enemy like that, but at the same time, they felt bad for the Ame sect leader. While discussing their decision, Song suddenly stepped forward to challenge Wuji. He didn't mention why he nominated himself for the duel, but he was clearly jealous of Jiro and Wuji's closeness. His jealousy made him not care about anything anymore. Even when Xiao Zhao tried to stop him, he pushed her so violently that she fell. Needless to say, Wuji became angry at Song's rudeness, and he accepted his challenge to a duel. Poor Song. Even though he had acted cool by challenging Wuji, he couldn't do anything in front of Wuji. Their duel lasted very short, and after Song fell, the seniors immediately announced that they recognized Wuji's victory. It turned out that 6th Wudong refused to end the duel. He still grudges Yang Xiao, who kidnapped his fiancée, Xiaofu, and he won't hesitate to kill Wuji if he still gets in the way of his revenge. But Wuji remained unmoved in his place. Even as blood spurted from his mouth, he begged 6th Wudong to forget his grudge. Soon after, Wuji finally exposed his true identity in front of everyone by calling 6th Wudong as his uncle. Hearing that, the people from the Wudong sect and Heavenly Eagle realized that the young man was Zhang Wuji, the son of 5th Wudong and Yin Shushu. They then surrounded him while crying happily to meet their long-lost family members again. 6th Wudong was also happy, but he later remembered that his grudge against Yang Xiao was still unresolved. So he left Wuji and walked toward Yang Xiao to kill him. But fortunately, Bu Hui stopped him, saying that she was the daughter of Xiaofu. She then told everything that had happened, and if 6th Wudong wanted to hate someone, he should have placed his hatred on the Ame sect leader, the person who had killed Xiaofu. Shocked, 6th Wudong asked the Ame sect leader if what Bu Hui said was true, and without the slightest guilt, she admits that she was the one who killed Xiaofu because her student married Yang Xiao and has absolutely no regrets about it. Feeling embarrassed and disappointed because he had been wrong, 6th Wudong dropped his sword and left that place. Thanks to Wuji, the war ended with the Ming sect being saved. The 6 sects returned from the Ming headquarters to their respective places. However, a few hours later, the Shaolin sect returned to take away Cheng Kun's body. But Yang Xiao claims that Cheng Kun's body simply disappeared, and he denies accusations that the Ming sect had hidden it. Thus, the Shaolin sect was forced to return empty-handed. Meanwhile, after Wuji recovered from his injuries, the higher-ups of the Ming sect invited him to discuss their plans for the future. The people of the Ming sect hoped that Wuji would become their new leader, considering that he had greatly contributed to saving the sect from extinction. But Wuji rejected the offer. He didn't want to take on the huge responsibility of being a sect leader. While they were busy arguing, the guards at the front gate were surprised by the sudden attacks launched by the smaller sects. However, these small sects were no match for the Ming warriors. But because the Ming people were still exhausted from the recent war, they couldn't withstand the onslaught of the attackers. Seeing the critical situation, one of the guards reported the attack to the sect's higher-ups. Shortly after, Wuji suggested they all hide in a secret passage while recovering from their condition. But the sect's higher-ups reject his proposal because the rules state that only the sect's leader can enter the secret passage. During the confusion, Wuji remembered the will of the last leader and handed it to Yang Xiao, hoping he would comply with the will by appointing Golden Lion as their new leader. After reading the letter, Yang Xiao had the idea to appoint Wuji as a temporary leader so that later he could cancel the rule that only allowed sect leaders to use the secret passage. To save them all, Wuji finally agrees to become the temporary leader of the Ming sect with great hesitation. He also agreed to Yang Xiao's suggestion that they set fire to the hall before entering the secret passage to divert the enemy if they managed to break through. Meanwhile, the warriors from the Wudong sect bumped into people from the Ame sect at an inn when they were on their way home. But the Ame sect leader greeted them forcefully. She was still angry with the Wudong sect, who sided with Wuji instead of completing their original goal. The Ame sect leader's hate for them made the Wudong warriors uncomfortable if they had to stay in the same hostel. So, after eating their dinner, they decided to continue their journey back. But when they walked a few steps, they met a mysterious group of people who invited those Wudong warriors to go to their leader's house. The mysterious group did not say who their leader was, but they said 3 other sects, including the Shaolin sect, were waiting for the Wudong sect there. Of course, first Wudong declined the invitation because he did not know those mysterious people, and they were too suspicious. But apparently, the mysterious group had secretly mixed the food the Wudong warriors had eaten at the inn just now with sleeping pills. As a result, they all lost consciousness. So were the Ame sect people who were still in the inn. Thus, the mysterious people could get them all to their place without the slightest resistance. Back at the Ming sect headquarters, after they had paid their respects in front of the late sect leader's tomb, a debate broke out again as Wuji intended to step down from the position of leader he had just obtained. It was only because of constant insistence that Wuji finally agreed to become the temporary leader. That also comes with 3 conditions. First, all members of the Ming sect are prohibited from killing people indiscriminately. Second, they have to make peace with the other 6 sects. And third, they had to pick up Golden Lion on the Ice Fire Island and make him the new leader, as mandated by the last leader. And all of them agreed to the conditions put forward by Wuji without exception. The series ends.